Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. This meeting is an in-person meeting at the location listed above, which is 870 Colfax. Questions may be submitted beforehand to liz.goodwin@bhas.org or presented in person during the public comment sections as indicated in the agenda. Board members may be contacted through the emails listed below. Requests for special assistance, including for persons with disabilities, may be sent to liz.goodwin@bhas.org. I call this meeting to order officially. What time?
5:34.
At 5:34 p.m. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda, we have roll call. Secretary Triplett.
President, trustee Robinson,
Present.
trustee Gavin,
Present.
trustee Triplett, present, trustee Creighton,
Present.
trustee Bowen,
Present.
trustee Doyle,
Present.
trustee Rocket Martin. Quorum has been established.
All right, thank you. A quorum has been established. Next, we have administration of the oath of office. Ms. Goodwin will be doing that. This is our ceremonial oath for those who have been recently re-elected or elected. So it begins with myself, then Ms. Doyle, and then Ms. Gavin. Go ahead. I can do it from here.
Okay, trustee Robinson, please repeat after me. I do solemnly affirm
I do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
as an officer of the member of the Board of Education
as an officer of the member of the Board of Education
of Benton Harbor Area Schools according to the best of my ability.
of Benton Harbor Area Schools according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Angela Doyle.
Trustee Doyle, I do solemnly affirm
I do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution of this state,
the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
as an officer of the member of the Board of Education
as officer of
of member
the member of the Board of Education
of Benton Harbor Area Schools
of Benton Harbor Area Schools
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank
Next, we have Ms. Elnora Gavin.
Trustee Gavin, I do solemnly affirm
I do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
as an officer of the member, as an officer of member of the Board of Education
as the officer of member of the Board of Education
of Benton Harbor Area Schools
of Benton Harbor Area Schools
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
All right, so welcome to the Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education first meeting for 2023. Next on our agenda, we have election of a temporary chairperson. Board Policy 0151 allows that the board conduct an organizational meeting not earlier than January 1st, immediately following an election held on November, the regular election date, and not later than the second Tuesday in January at a meeting held for that purpose. The meeting shall be called to order by the ranking officer of the preceding board, who shall serve as the presiding officer until the election of a temporary chairperson, who shall in turn serve until the election of a president. So I am the reigning president or highest ranking from last year. However, I was reelected. So although our policy indicates that I would be the chair of the meeting, we technically have to nominate a temporary chairperson until we get through our organizational meeting. So is there a nomination for a temporary chairperson for our
I
meeting?
nominate,
Go ahead, trustee Bowens.
I nominate trustee Robinson as the temporary chair.
Support.
All right.
Second that motion.
So the motion has been made by trustee Bowens and supported by trustee Creighton that we nominate Deshauna Robinson as the temporary chairperson. Question, comments, concerns? Hearing none, Secretary Triplett.
Trustee Robinson,
Yes.
Secretary, trustee Triplett, yes, trustee Creighton,
Yes.
trustee Rocket Martin.
Yes.
Trustee Bowen,
Yes,
trustee Doyle,
Yes.
trustee Gavin,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right, next on the agenda, we have approval of the agenda.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda with one correction or modification.
Okay, what is noted, the noted modification?
The note of modification, I would like to change the organizational meeting to come after the approval, to come after the review of the board norms.
support.
Okay, so you're wanting to put it before,
The public comment.
so if we put it before public comment, it would prevent the public from making a comment on that as an agenda item.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the agenda with the noted modification to move our organizational meeting to G.
Okay, so that would be making the organizational meeting after public comment,
Before public comment.
before public comment.
It was already supported.
Okay, so the motion has been made by Treasurer Creighton and supported by trustee Bowens, if I'm not mistaken, that we approve the agenda with one amendment that would be moving up the organizational meeting to letter G, and it would take place before public comment on the agenda. Questions, comments, concerns?
I do have a question. If we're talking about the organizational meeting in its entirety, or can we be specific? Can we just do the election of the officers from the organizational meeting and then go there?
Is that a question for me?
Well,
Are
I'm
we
deferring
able
to you because
separate? Are we able to separate it? I can restate my motion if we're able to separate it.
so it is technically a part of the organizational meeting. So we can choose to maintain it within that. The purpose of this meeting today as a special meeting is to conduct the organizational meeting, which is electing all of these positions. But what I hear you all it sounds like Secretary Triplett is asking is if we can begin with the election of officers as the first order of business for G, and then maintain the rest of the organizational meeting in its standard placement.
Yes.
Madam, temporary president,
Yes, you have the floor.
I would like to modify my motion if I may.
Okay, you may modify your
Okay.
motion. Go ahead.
I would like to make a motion that we amend the agenda with the modification of changing and removing the election of officers out of the organizational meeting and adding it to letter G.
Is there a second or support of that?
It's already, support.
Okay, so to make sure everyone's clear on what Treasurer Creighton is requesting, she is asking that we just do the election of officers at letter G, proceed with public comment, and then the remainder of the organizational meeting would remain in its place, which is taking place after the Benton Harbor Area Schools audit report, et cetera. Questions, comments, or concerns? The motion has been made by Treasurer Creighton and supported by trustee Bowens. Questions, comments, or concerns? And we're at approval of the agenda.
Madam President,
You have the floor.
I have a question. What is the rationale for putting public comments after the election of the office rather than before?
Oh, be sure to use your microphone. Sometimes she can't hear us for the purpose of the
My
minute.
question is, what is the rationale for moving public comments after the election of the office rather than before?
I'll defer to Treasurer Creighton. It was her initial motion.
There's no rationale. It was just a recommendation that I would like to, make at this time.
Okay. Any additional questions, comments, or concerns?
My thoughts was that once we have the officers in place, then we would have president, what have you, to be able to conduct the order of business. As it relates to reading the statement, but I guess the leading officer could do that as well.
Okay, any additional questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, Secretary Triplett, can you please call the vote for approval of the agenda with the noted amendment by Treasurer Creighton, which was supported by Trustee Bowens?
Trustee Robinson,
Yes.
trustee Triplett, yes. Trustee Creighton,
Yes.
trustee Bowen,
Yes.
trustee Rocket Martin,
Yes.
trustee Gavin,
Yes.
trustee Doyle,
Yes.
motion carried.
All right, next technically on the agenda is reading of our board norms. The Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education norms are: we will treat each other with respect, we will listen to learn, we will refrain from side conversations, we will use our time wisely, starting and ending our meetings on time. We will challenge ideas and not people. We will ask questions when in doubt. There will be no surprises at the board table. We will practice the 7 norms of collaboration. Those are pausing, paraphrasing, posing questions, putting ideas on the table, providing data, paying attention to self and others, and presuming positive intentions. These are the norms that we utilize when conducting business with each other, as well as how we interact with the public. We also ask that the public utilizes these norms when interacting with us. And one thing that I would like you all to think about for next week's order of business in our standard board meeting, whether or not there is anything in the Board of Education norms that we would like to change or alter, being that we have a different comprised board. If we think it's fine as it is, we can continue with it. If it's anything that you would like to suggest as a change, be prepared to discuss that as an item of board business next week. So next on the agenda, technically with the noted amendment, we have election of officers for the 2023 calendar year. The positions that we have to elect for are president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. I will call each of the positions as they are listed. You can enter a nomination for an individual if you have one. That person has to determine or confirm if they accept the nomination. I will take nominations for each of the positions, and then we will go through and do the vote for each of the officers as listed. So the first officer that we have is the office of the president. Are there any nominations for the office of the president for the 2023 calendar year?
Madam Chairman,
Go ahead.
You have
I
the
would
floor.
like to nominate Deshauna Robinson as president.
Okay, I accept your nomination. Thank you, trustee Rocket Martin. Are there any other nominations for the office of president? All right. Next, we have the office of vice president. Are there any noted nominations for the office of vice president?
Madam Chairman, I would like to nominate trustee Trenton Bowen for the office of vice president.
Okay, trustee Bowens, do you accept the nomination?
I accept, Madam President.
Are there any other nominations for the office of vice president? All right,
Madam
hearing,
Chair,
you have the floor.
I would like to recommend trustee Angela Doyle.
All right, so trustee Angela Doyle, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I accept.
Okay. So currently, as it stands, we have 2 nominations for the office of vice president, which are trustee Bowens and trustee Angela Doyle. Are there any other nominations for the office of vice president? Hearing none, we'll proceed. Next, we have the office of secretary. Are there any nominations for the office of secretary?
Madam Chair,
You have the floor.
I nominate Mr. Triplett, trustee Triplett for office of secretary.
The nomination has been made for trustee Triplett for the office of secretary. Do you accept the nomination?
I do.
All right, so Secretary Triplett has accepted the nomination for the office of secretary. Are there any other nominations? All right, and then next on our list, we have the office of treasurer. Are there any nominations for the office of treasurer?
Madam
Madam-
President,
I will defer to trustee Rocket Martin.
I'd like to nominate Angel Creighton for treasurer.
Okay, trustee Creighton, do you accept the nomination?
I do, thank you.
Okay, so trustee Creighton has accepted the nomination for the office of treasurer. Are there any other nominations for the office of treasurer? All right, so currently as it stands, our nominations for the election for 2023 are President Deshauna Robinson, Vice President, we have both trustee Trenton Bowens and trustee Angela Doyle. For the office of secretary, we have trustee Triplett, and for the office of treasurer, we have trustee Creighton. So we will begin for the office of president and now allow Secretary Triplett to call the roll for myself.
Secretary Triplett, yes. Treasurer Creighton,
Yes.
Treasurer Creighton, trustee, I'm trying to get the trustee Bowen,
Yes.
trustee Rocket Martin.
Yes.
Trustee Gavin,
Yes.
trustee Doyle,
Yes.
trustee Robinson.
Yes. All right, so thank you all. We have myself elected as the position of president. Next, we have two individuals again nominated for the office of vice president. We have trustee Bowens and we have trustee Doyle. Secretary Triplett, can you please call the roll for the vote for trustee Bowens?
President Robinson,
We have to do verbal votes. Don't try to hide your hand.
No, I'm just, how do we do that?
Same way we take vote for anything else. Okay, go ahead. You can proceed.
so you are the president now.
Yes, I am. I am. technically-
Okay, 'cause I was a little confused. Okay, President Robinson,
Yes.
trustee Triplett, yes. Trustee Creighton,
Yes.
trustee Bowens,
Yes.
trustee Rocket Martin.
Yes.
I think when you get to where it is, you don't have to go any
Well,
further.
technically we should.
Okay, trustee Gavin,
No.
trustee Doyle.
No.
Okay, next we have Ms. Doyle for the position of vice president. Secretary Triplett, can you please call the vote?
There's no need to call it.
Yeah. Trustee Robinson,
No,
Madam President,
you have the floor.
does trustee Bowen have 4 votes?
Trustee Bowens has 5.
So why are we?
I just wanted to be technically official, but if there's no opposition in us taking the vote as it stands, I'm not opposed to it.
I think we should. for
In the
market
interest of
purposes.
time and the MASB protocol, this is how they normally do.
Perfectly fine with me. So we can proceed with Secretary Triplett. There was only one nomination. I'm sorry, he's not. Secretary Triplett just said. There was only one nomination for the office of secretary, and that was for Ronaldo Triplett. You can go ahead and call the vote.
President Robinson,
Yes.
Vice President Bowens,
Yes.
trustee Creighton,
Yes.
trustee Triplett. Yes, trustee Rocket Martin,
Yes.
trustee Doyle,
Yes.
trustee Gavin,
Yes.
Did you call me?
I said President Robinson, we get confused. I didn't say trustee this time.
Okay. I placed the vote.
Trustee President Robinson,
Yes. All right, thank you. Congratulations, Secretary Triplett. Next, we have the position of treasurer. There's only been one nomination made, and that was for trustee Angel Creighton. Secretary Triplett?
President Robinson,
Yes.
Vice President Bowens,
Yes.
Secretary Triplett. Yes. Trustee Creighton,
Yes.
trustee Rocket Martin,
Yes.
trustee Gavin,
Yes.
trustee Doyle.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, so we have trustee Angel Creighton, technically now the treasurer of the Board of Education for the 2023 calendar year. So I will go through and notate our elected officers. We have Deshauna Robinson for the office of president. We have Trenton Bowens for the office of vice president. We have Ronaldo Triplett for the office of secretary, and we have Angel Creighton for the office of treasurer. Congratulations for the 2023 year. I look forward to seeing the efforts of the full board in its entirety. And I'm excited to see what's to come. So we are going to move forward with our agenda. Okay, and Treasurer Creighton just had to step out. You notate that just in case she misses a vote. She had to step out briefly at 5:54 PM. So normally we would, at the end of the organizational meeting, elect the officers. The board president at that particular time presides over the meeting. I was elected a chair, so we don't have to technically do that official switch because I maintain my seat. So we technically have public comment on agenda items. And I don't have my public comment statement in front of me. Can you open it for me?
It's on the last page.
Is it?
Check with the officer page.
Yeah, because I don't see it in here. Okay, so I'll just read it from the screen. I'm used to the plastic template. The Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on district matters. Today, there are 2 areas for comment on the agenda of which you may decide when to speak. Public comment on the remaining agenda items and then open public comment. We request that each interested participant complete a public participation form using legible writing to ensure that responses are appropriate and properly focused. Per Benton Harbor Area Schools Bylaw 0167.3, which governs board participation at board meetings, we request that you preface your comments with your name, address, and group affiliation when appropriate. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to a 3-minute duration, and per our bylaws, no participant may speak more than once on the same topic until any other persons have had the opportunity to speak on that topic. Participants may remove their mask when addressing the board. Participants shall direct all comments to the board and not to staff or other participants. The board will listen, take comments and questions under advisement and not respond at this time. I, as president, will refer questions to the superintendent for research and response. Please ensure that your public participation form includes your contact information as requested. If you have specific questions for the board or executive team that require follow-up, please email those directly to liz.goodwin@bhas.org. So is there anyone for open public comment at this time? And I know Ms. Swanigan, you had a comment, correct?
Hello, everyone. Ms. Kennard would like to welcome the 2 new board members to Benton Harbor Area Schools District, Ms. Elnora Gavin and Ms. Angela Doyle. And we would like to present you with these flowers and candy and say thank you and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
That was from the Racial Equity Committee.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else present for public comment? And you do have 2 opportunities to speak this evening, so you can choose to speak now and later, or one or the other. All right, if there's no one else for public comment, we'll proceed with our board business this evening. Our first order of business is our Benton Harbor Area Schools Audit Report from Hunger for Nichols. And before we get started, I would just like to give a very warm welcome to our former Vice President of the Board of Education, Matthew Bradley, who I just noticed is here.
Good evening, everybody. How we doing tonight?
All right.
I came to an eventful meeting here. I'm not used to that. Can you all hear me well? I don't know if the mic is on here. If I need to lean in closer or not, but it was a tough year this year. As you know, Scott Johnson left the district. Anytime you lose a business manager, even if you have a replacement, it makes the audit very challenging, not only from our perspective, but really from yours, and kind of picking up that work, answering questions related to a year that you weren't part of. So to that regard, we appreciate Dr. Butts. We had a lot of help from Liz and coordinating with the people we needed. And Brian, I'm not sure if he's here tonight. We're all great to work with through those challenging times. So that being said, I know you have a full agenda. I did meet with, I want to make sure I get all the titles right. President Robinson, I met with this morning, Treasurer Creighton and Dr. Butts to go through this in detail. So sometimes you may have had longer presentations than I'm going to give you tonight. I want to stick to kind of the high notes, help you understand the financials and maybe direct you for some good independent reading if you'd like when you go home tonight. So the most important piece, if you have the reports in front of you, is at the beginning. And I'm in the big report. These are the financial statements. I should have mentioned that. We have two reports. The second one relates to the federal grants you received. So most districts of your size, and even smaller, if you've spent over $750,000 in federal grants, you need a second audit. So you have to deal with us twice, all the fun of an audit. So again, I appreciate Dr. Butts and the team that stepped in this year. So I'll go through that one second. It's much shorter. So I'm on page 2 and 3 of the report. This is where our opinion is. You want this to be a cut and paste type of report. It is. The state will not accept anything less than an unmodified opinion. And that's what you're looking at here. That's the highest opinion we can give in an audit. That means financials are fairly presented. And what you're looking at here, you can rely on basically. I'm going to start skimming, so feel free to jump in. I want to make sure you have time for questions. And I'm really going to bounce through it fast because I think I could spend 45 minutes to an hour here if I were to go through it in detail. So definitely stop me and interrupt. I think an important page is on page 6. So the MD&A section, management discussion and analysis. This is kind of a high level summary of the audit, some context to what the reports entail, and also a chance for you to have in the business office to put some of this in your own words. There's a couple sections here, one being on page 11, factors bearing on the district's future, and also on page 10, general fund budgetary highlights. We ask for your help in completing those. The rest is us summarizing the financial information and providing that context. So the only thing I'll say on page 6 here, it explains why you're looking at really 2 sets of financial statements. You have your district-wide financials and you have your fund financial statements. The main difference and the way to think about it is one includes all of your long-term information, so debt of the district, capital assets, things of that nature. The other does not. So the other allows the fund financial statements allow you to look at an individual fund level, your general fund, your main operating fund, how that is improving or deteriorating on a year-to-year basis. I'll get to that. Yours is improving, so that's good to make sure that's clear.
So what did you said that ours we're improving?
And I'll hit on that a little more when I get to it. But yes, your general fund historically had a deficit fund balance. So that goes back, a couple of decades. So you get into that situation. I think it's really hard to dig your way out. The last couple of years, that's improved drastically to the point where you have what's considered a healthy fund balance at a state level. So that's where you want to be. You would hope every district is always in that window, but they're unfortunately not. And it took a while to dig out of that. The pandemic funding helped in that regard, your ESSER 1, 2, 3, and that kind of influx of federal one-time revenue is important to remember, but it did get you into a good position. Not much else to talk about in the MD&A other than on page 7, this is that district-wide information. So this includes the long-term liabilities. I just want to point out the net pension and OPEB liabilities you see there. If you're looking at the 2021 versus 22 column, you'll see a large decrease. That's the same for any district you would look at in the entire state. Plan assets in 2021, this is all driven by actuary estimates and those sorts of things. The liability was much higher due to COVID in that year. The measurement date, I think, for that column was September 30, 2020. Fast forward a year, it was much better conditions in the market, and you see a drastic A total of $8 million reduction in your liability this year. So I guess my point is it's very subjective and probably not something to pay too close of attention to when you look at your total net position and the deficit amount that it is, because it is going to fluctuate dependent on those factors that are really out of your control. Does that make sense? I know that's a mouthful. Jumping ahead, I just want to get into the actual statement. So page 14 through 15, this is where you can see the full version of those summarized versions that are in the MD&A. Page 15, it shows your total expenditures and some of the primary revenues of the school district that are meant to offset those. You'll see direct grants and charges for service do not provide what you need to run a school district. So that's where property taxes, that's where state unrestricted state aid comes into play to make up that deficit. Page 16 and page 18 are where the second set of financials where I mentioned, the ones that really give you a chance to look on a year-to-year basis. That's where I was pointing out the fund balance. You'll see the best page to look is on page 18, statement of activities. You went from a $3.2 million fund balance up to a 4, so you're going in the right direction. That represents 13% of your subsequent year expenditures. So the year we're in now, fiscal year 23, and the state looks at a 10 to 20% range as being a good, healthy fund balance. So you're really in a really good spot right there where you need to be. Page 20 is our budget to actual statement, another important statement, especially as you as the board and your involvement in budgeting. So that gives kind of the results of how you did on a budgeting perspective. And beyond that, for sake of time, I'm probably going to jump all the way through the rest of the report, but I want to mention the smaller funds. So in the front here, the statement I just went through had just your major funds of the district. The back of the report has all the details. So you'll see a non-major column on pages 18 and pages 16. There are full sets of financials for each fund that's included and that's in the back of the report. For sake of time, I won't go through those. And in your notes, there's a lot of good information. Anything you want to know about those pension and OPEB plans, those are in note G and H. There's a note on capital assets and long-term debt of the district. Nothing really significant to report in that realm other than you're paying down your debt. You didn't take on any new debt this year, and your capital assets, you're basically just depreciating and not making major purchases. Are there any questions? I think that's all I want to cover for the financial audit. Before I jump into the single audit, you can stop me for any questions you have.
All right, are there any current questions of the information that has been reviewed thus far?
Might I ask, what is the inter-district sources? This is on page 20.
Page 20.
Where it says revenues.
So it could be a variety of things. I'd have to look to see exactly what it is, but it could be shared services amongst neighboring districts, those sorts of things, inter-district, in your area, in your Berrien RESA potentially. I could get a more definite answer for you after the fact if you like.
Any additional questions, Secretary Triplett?
So going through this, and I'm looking at it, I would definitely like to take this opportunity to thank the chairman of our finance committee, who is also our treasurer, for the work, the committee work, the questions, the understanding, and always being available. But if we have additional questions, because I would like to, what I do is compare and contrast from the last audit and the previous audit. And so last year I saw not any discrepancies, but I saw with the reports were given, there was something that I specifically had my eye on, and I had some further questions about it. So if we want to ask questions, once we go through this, of what is it?
Hunger for nickels.
Hunger for nickels.
The answer is yes to that question. Yes, you are welcome to reach out, always through the business office usually is a good way to do that. We love getting questions from a board. I mean, I think it shows good accountability of the board, that they are asking the right questions and those sorts of things. And this report's available to the public, so anyone out there can go and look at the same thing you're looking at and ask the same questions. So I think it's great when we have board involvement. So feel free, and if I can, I'm happy to share my direct information if you need.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, any additional questions for what has been reviewed thus far. Trustee Gavin.
Yes, thank you for this. My question, just in terms of your process, as you're gathering your data for this, have you used the Munetrics accounting system, any of that information from that platform? Or are you needing to go directly?
Is Munetrics, is that your financial accounting software? What we do, we take reports. We have a long, and this is why we are annoying as we are. We have a large list of requests. Many of those things come from your accounting system. So whether it's full general ledger detail, all of the transactional level detail, we ask for that for all funds. We need, trial balances that is the end product of all that work throughout the year. That should tie to your prior year audit, and we should be able to audit and do our procedures to get to this point. But yes, we rely on much of that information. We personally do not access it. We route that through whether Scott, and that was part of the challenge for Dr. Butts coming on in and dealing with, outstanding things that were needed for the audit just based on the timing of when Scott left the district this year.
Thank you.
So, yeah, sure.
All right, any additional questions thus far? Hearing none, you can
All right,
proceed.
I'll carry on here. So I'm now to the smaller report. Like I mentioned, $750,000 each year in federal expenditures means you need this audit. It's essentially a compliance audit. A couple important things to point out, and I like to relate them to the first two audit letters you see in here. We have one that relates to internal control over financial reporting. Main reason this is in here is because it's a risk-based audit. We do not look at every program that you administer here. You're a large district, you'll see upwards of $9 million in federal grants. So a lot of grant programs that are not looked at on a year-to-year basis. So I'll point out to you to show you the programs we audit. Generally, it's the larger ones, the ones that carry more risk, which in the last couple of years have been the Education Stabilization Fund. Due to federal requirements, with that being a high-risk program at a national level, we have to look at that essentially everywhere. So that was audited here the past 2 years.
I'm sorry, can you let me know which page you're?
That was like a
That was
drawn
just a
out.
pre-summary,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'll jump into it now. First
Okay.
report is in here because it's a risk-based audit. You have a clean opinion on that regard. We had no issues with internal controls over financial reporting. We had the challenges getting information late in the audit just due to Scott leaving, but it really stopped at that point. So no modifications there to that first report.
Question.
Sure.
So you said that you had challenges getting information due to Mr. Johnson leaving.
Correct.
And so, but what did you give any recommendations as it relates to one person, if one person leaves, if in particular in the finance office, that there aren't any other protocols in place for this transition to continue? Did you see any systems in place and what have you that you were able to get exactly what you needed?
We didn't, I think, relate it to an issue with some internal controls that were in place to produce that information. I think it was more really the legwork that an audit entails, the timing of it when you're trying to close, out all of that work, and then you're starting the new year. You have a lot of new work going on over the summer. I think we looked at that as more of an isolated instance, but certainly we've been working with Dr. Butts on the future. I think he's very engaged in looking to just improve operations in the business office as a whole. But I think I said early on, I wanted to make it clear that we viewed it as a challenge being related to a key person leaving. And Scott was a key person in that he was the CFO. And there's been some staff turnover over the years that we've worked with the district in the business office. So I think the goal, and I know that's the goal of Dr. Butts and his team, is to get a good person in place, and probably all of you, to run the business office. And because it's a local government, there's a lot that goes on from an accounting perspective in a school district.
Right.
I hope I answered your question there.
You did.
Okay. Second report this is really the compliance report. So this is where we would identify any issues that we had. Overall, important asterisk is that on our opinion paragraph, I skipped over the very first page, just moved in the report. We have a clean opinion on all of the programs that we looked at. So in a single audit, we have to determine if we need to qualify that opinion based on results of our compliance testing. Sometimes there's errors that might lead to a finding. Sometimes there might be errors that do not lead to a finding. But the key is to have a clean audit report, which you have, a clean audit opinion. We do have 2 audit findings. A couple of them, actually both of them, historically, we've had similar issues, and these are things that are fixable, and I can talk through those in more detail. I think I want to say also important to note that that's down from 6 2 years ago, and historically there were, a handful each year related to the federal programs. I mentioned how large of grants area that you have at the district. There's lots of different programs. Each of those have their own requirements, demand their own attention and time. And I think just turnover alone with your grants person has also created challenges in that area. I like to put the optimistic approach twist on it, because when there are levels of findings that we look at, and I look at both of these and think that they are correctable. So I think with that being said, I'll just jump ahead because I've talked about all the expenditures. In the middle of the report is all of your different grants. Current year expenditure column, you'll see it's kind of a funny layout here. That is the driver of the audit. And important to remember, we don't audit all of these. We only look at 2 or 3 in the case of this year. I'm jumping ahead now to page 18. This is really the summary of our results. So you have the top section of there reflects the 2 different letters. I mentioned there are 2 findings. So that's why you have 1 box checked yes. We looked at the 3 programs. So your nutrition program, Title I, and the Education Stabilization Fund, which includes all sources of that federal fund, which are the ESSER 1, 2, 3, GEAR, all those acronyms. You probably heard a lot about the last 2 or 3 years. Those are all part of that program. And I can just move on forward to page 19 and page 20 are where you can find the findings. We talked through them in detail this morning, so I'm not going to go dive too deep into it, other than to say the first one related to Title I. There's a requirement in any federal grant, you have to have documentation in place specifically to support charges to a federal grant. This is a finding we've had minor differences over the years with split funded individuals on your grant that are charged to title. And that's not to say they're not able to be charged in title. They are. It's really a control failure, and this is a control-based audit that we have to report that sort of thing. So for example, because I know that probably is a little confusing, if you plan on charging someone 27% of their salary to a specific grant, that's really just budget driven and pretty subjective what all goes into that. If you charge them at 29% instead of 28%, even though you could have charged them at 100, that would lead to a finding like this. And that is the context of the finding. It's often hard to put in to wording that makes a lot of sense, but hopefully that does. The second related to CEFA challenges we had. The CEFA is the schedule. And I think the short summary of this one is that it relates to pulling down federal grants a little too late in the year. Scott was pretty conservative with that approach of pulling down the funding. The state has some requirements so that caused a couple issues with your Title II grant and getting what we needed to report an accurate CEFA from the district.
So-
Go ahead.
You have the floor, Ms. Gavin, and then Secretary Triplett.
Thank you. So you said there's an issue with pulling down the funding too late in the year. So just in plain terms, are you saying that the funding could have been pulled down much sooner?
Correct, but it is a strictly a timing thing with the financials. So the state has a requirement, a federal grant that you have spent in a fiscal year. So in this case, fiscal year 22 needs to be pulled down from the state within 60 days of the year end. Even though you could wait longer than that and still pull down the funding, you can't recognize revenue in the financials. So it's a common issue that we see for many of our districts like to wait till all of their summer school costs are known and in and precise, and then they want to pull it down at that point. There's just a timing difference it creates. So that was the main issue behind the finding. I think it's an area for improvement that pulling down throughout the year could help avoid.
Quick question, is this
Sure.
a reimbursement type of grant?
They are reimbursement based. Most of the state's grants are reimbursement based. There are some that are advanced payment that you may have received over the years, but this one in particular is reimbursement based.
Thank you.
So when you say it was kind of conservative in pulling down, what word did you use?
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't use that word. Careful to not cause an issue by pulling it down too early, because it is reimbursement based. So you cannot pull down those funds before you've spent them. So I think he was really careful on that end, which caused the issue on the back end of wasn't pulling them down in time to be recognized in financials. So you'll see there was a large variance in revenue on your budget to actual that related to this issue. Again, fixable, but again, it's timing related. In most cases, it doesn't mean you've lost any funding. It means that you just can't have it in this financial statement. You need to get it in the next year, and you need to make the accounting entries necessary. So it's a common entry that we have to make a lot. In the cases where it's material and it's affected our financials, then we have to disclose it. So that's the main reason this is in here, because of the issue it created in our prior year report.
So it did create an issue because it wasn't pulled down in the timely fast manner, or it did create an issue because it was just held and or not used for the purpose. Like, say for instance, you're putting this money down every year. We have summer school. We should know. So there shouldn't be a problem with every year we need school supplies.
Sure.
We should know how much paper, how much everything that we need. There should never be any school in this district that does not have the necessary materials, because we should already know this. If not, we just look at previous budgets and just make sure that it's down within that time frame.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding and the board is recognizing what you're saying, and I could be off, but these are funds that we spend and then get the reimbursement from the state. So it wouldn't necessarily be something that we would be drawing down in advance. It would be us sending in the documentation of our costs and expenses, and then getting the reimbursement for the grant dollars that we've already been funded, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And so it's not that we were not getting the grant funding, it's just that we were not within that 60-day window.
Yeah, I'm trying my best to relate it directly to timing, and a timing issue that it creates in an audit, which can lead to challenges. You know, if it's immaterial, we consider materiality. So if it's immaterial, it probably wouldn't have led to, you know, an addition of an audit finding. In this case, it was more material. So it was a large difference in revenue from one year to the next. But it's important that if you look at 2 years, it's the same. So it's the same amount of revenue is getting recognized, not lost revenue. Make sure that's clear.
Okay, I think
That-
trustee Raquel Martin had a question.
You answered my question, because I was just when there's no penalties involved. It's just that you.
No, the penalties become if you overdraw on a
Right.
fund. So if you
So then
pull
I-
down more than you budget because you don't know throughout the year what you're spending on it, or if you pull it down too late altogether for whatever grant that may be. And each grant has a different expenditure period that's allowable. Title's challenging because it's based on the state's year. So it's the end of September, not the end of June. So there's this window where you can pull down those funds from the state, but then, you know, if you're not accounting for it and considering the audit, then you might have differences between the years that should have been corrected.
So we are doing it wisely.
In general, and I think this is an area to improve of just more timely pull downs of the fund. There was nothing wrong per se about waiting in this, except in this case where it was waited too long. But I think that's what we would advise. We understand the limitations sometimes of determining those expenditures. You have additional challenges because many of your teachers and employees are eligible for Title I, and you only get so many dollars. So it's a budgeting game to some degree where you're moving around and making sure you stay within budget, and then people leave and these sorts of things. I know I'm going off on a tangent, so I said I'd be short.
No.
But no, what you're saying is actually very helpful in ensuring that it's clear what exactly it is that you're communicating. I think one of concerns of many board members is losing funding. And so that's why I asked additional questions, and I think Raquel did as well, to ensure that we understand exactly what it is that you're communicating in your information that you just provided wasn't random. It was very clarifying
Okay,
for
good.
us. So you can, Secretary Triplett, and then Trustee Gavin, and then we'll proceed.
Yeah, I think the penalty or the shame of it all is that for everything that we need in this district, we should not have a problem with that money being pulled down. So moving forward, you know, for those people, when we're identifying somebody, pull that money down in a timely manner so that we can have everything that we need. I think it's important too, because when you're talking about grants, I know from experience that they have specifics to them. And they also have times that they're supposed to happen. And I'm also familiar that there are some portions of it that if you don't use it, you still may have an opportunity to use it, but you might only be able to use 20% of it or 15% when it comes to title fund. And so I appreciate having this information so that we can know moving forward that is an expectation that every dime that can be pulled down, there should never, ever be a time in Benton Harbor area school that we do not pull that money down. That we were specifically awarded that grant, and everything that was supposed to happen in that grant needs to happen in a timely manner. So thank you for that information.
Trustee Gavin.
I'm not sure if this is out of order or is in line with what you said. Just to follow up, I want to make sure you said there was no instances in which money had to be sent back because we didn't spend it.
I say our audit procedures did not lead to that. So
Did not.
the time or the difference in the state's year end versus the fiscal year end kind of leaves us with an unknown when it comes to, well, what happens after the audit period. So that is in our next audit period. So I can say title, for example, I know there have been carryover funds before. We audit the Title I program almost every year. We've never had a finding that carryover funds weren't properly moved to the next year and spent in the next year. There may be a theme of needing to carry over funds, and that could be an issue to address and look to improve. But if you're under the allowable amounts, I can't say that that's an issue, and it's never led to an issue in the audit.
Okay, thank you.
But there are ESSER related expenditure deadlines that'll be coming up in the next year, 2 years that you'll want to pay attention to with that spending. Those are unique grants that have a very large expenditure period. Historically, most grants just have the 1 year. Some of them have this time difference like title, but usually they're 1 year grants. ESSER goes all the way back to 2020, to March 2020. So
My other question is, and I'm just may not understand what it's saying here. It says 424,127 to reclassify prior period adjustment of title funds revenue for amount due back to the state of Michigan. Can you help me understand what that means?
yes, that relates to a past year, and I believe so this is part of the issue of pulling down timely final expenditure reports for title, which I believe are due in late October, maybe November. I think that related to 2 years ago, Scott identifying expenditures that were coded to title that he did not necessarily have. So it had to do with, you get X dollars in title, you have to make sure that you account in your accounting, in your expenditure accounts, that exact amount goes to the grant code. So if you're doing it that after year end, sometimes mistakes are made that too much went to it during the year and then the audit's out. So that's what that related to. It wasn't a loss of funding. It was that funds were overdrawn, and that is the expected take back. The state will usually net that. So that this is.
Explain it to me like I'm
know.
a fourth grader.
I'm trying, yeah. You budget for the grant, so you can only spend X dollars, but there's really not a lot of oversight when it comes to pulling down throughout the year. There's a confidence, and this is my perspective as an auditor. I don't never pull down the funds. I don't believe there's much allowed or required of you other than to go up, that those funds are available, you can pull them down. He accounted for, he charged too much in his actual accounts, and there's specific grant codes for any state grant. He put too much to the Title I grant during the audit period, more than was there to begin with. And those funds were allowed to be drawn down. It was realized by the state after they take it back. It's a common mistake that's made, again, often leads to things like a finding in a report and that sort of thing. But I won't say it's unheard of by any means.
Okay, so it doesn't mean that this amount of money had to go back to the state or anything like that. For
It
not
is
being
going back to the
spent.
state, but it was overdrawn. So the state never agreed and never, the amount budgeted for was the amount that the district would receive. The state doesn't throughout the year track to know when exactly you've gone over budget. And that's my understanding. I hope that's accurate. That's my perspective as an auditor, that they do not know, because too much goes out in some cases. Then they will realize eventually when they tie out the grants after year end. And then at that point, they're taking it back from your next year's funding. Again, it nets to the same amount. The district got the same amount. To my knowledge, that's the situation. And maybe somebody could shed more light on it after the fact, but that's my understanding.
I'll do a follow-up call. Thank
Yeah,
you.
okay,
All right, you can proceed.
okay. I'm most of the way through. These are good questions that really set up the last couple of comments. You asked about the 400,000. That's in our letter to governance. I'd say that's the last thing I had to go through, unless there were more questions on the two findings. So in here, this is our chance to communicate any challenges. Because the audit took some time to finish, there is a difficulties encountered section. just mentioning it, there's something brief related to receiving the information needed. Again, that was due to your prior business manager leaving. Large entries that are over a materiality, those are listed here. You asked about the 400,000. The other are rather routine entries related to where a certain revenue source should be recorded. So nothing major there. One thing that I do want to point out, and it's on the second to last page. There's talk of the food service fund and excess fund balance. This is, again, I'm starting to feel like it's very negative here with everything, but food service funds across the state are too high due to the pandemic. The districts that served a lot of meals, which Benton Harbor is one of those during the last couple of years, you had increased rates that, and made your fund balance go up. So food service is meant to break even. That's what the state looks at it. So they have a pretty low threshold for saying that it's an excess fund balance and you need to develop some sort of spend down plan. So you have that in place with MDE working on spending down that fund balance. We work with upwards of 50 schools, and I'd say 95% of them have this exact disclosure. So it was one of those things that was out of control of the district, but also a chance for maybe some improvements in the food service area through that spend down plan. The last page, there's a percentage on there. That's the percentage I was talking about of your health, having a healthy general fund balance of 10 to 20%. Here's listed 14, so I was a little off on what I said earlier, but right there in the middle of that range. Beyond that, I know we're looking forward to moving on to fiscal year 23 and next year. Hopefully we're here in November, which I think we historically have been. So, are there any other questions?
I'm just so glad to see that we did an increase in our balance.
Yeah.
I'd like to give us
Use your
a
mic,
hand.
please. You have to use your mic. I don't know if they heard you.
Oh, yeah, I said, I'm glad to see that we did an increase in our fund balance, and I'd like to give the district a hand. Yes.
All right, any additional questions for our presenter prior to him taking a seat?
I think when the statement is made within the last 2 years, like you had 6 different, incidentals and now it's down to 2. That shows that we're moving in the right direction. The correct questions are being asked, and accountability measures are being put in place because it is critical. It one of the most frustrating things, and I know when auditors come, we want to continue with the contract, but we really need to know exactly what's happening. We're sitting here as board members. Many of us have worked in education, have dealt with the grants and things that you're auditing, and do have a clear understanding of what the requirements are. And so, for me, and I'm glad that you did mention, because it was very frustrating that money was not being pulled down. And when I say almost $1 million for whatever reason that is being discussed because somebody either did too much or didn't do enough or didn't come down in time, that's very concerning to me. So I don't look at it like it's just like, oh, well, $400,000 is almost $500,000 of money. And anything that we can get from grant, we need it. Our children need every dime. And I think I would hope that the interim, and I want to say to Dr. Butts, thank you so much and for stepping in. I know that was a very challenging time, and that you do have some background and some understanding of the finance, so you were able to ask questions that were necessary questions. But I would like your card, because I do want to ask you more in depth, because that is very concerning to me. That, to me, as the young people say, that's a red flag. And that's something that when we're talking about moving forward, because we can't keep on doing the same things over and over again. This is my second year going into my second year, and the audit had basically said many of the same things. Like you said, we are rich in grants. And if we use the grants properly and have an understanding that we cannot supplant, or we can use to help and build, it would even help us more as it relates to our long-term debt and those types of things. But thank you so very, very much. And please make sure I get a card.
Oh, well, it's funny you asked for the card. I finally have stopped bringing the cards because no one ever asked, but I'll make sure that Liz has my contact information. So I'll make sure we can get in
And
contact.
what we can do if there are additional questions that any trustees have, you know, if it's an afterthought after the meeting,
Mhm.
we can schedule something that those that have questions can touch base with Dr. Buzz and the auditors to get those additional questions answered. That way, we're not making multiple calls at different times, but we can kind of have those conversations at one time. I've had questions answered and heard it. I know Treasurer Creighton has. So anyone else, if you're interested, let Dr. Butts know and maybe we can get something scheduled.
Madam President, also at our Michigan Association of School Board Conference, had an opportunity to sit in on a class that was provided by your audit firm, and it was very impressive.
Oh, good.
The young lady that presented, so I think that we do have an integral audit firm that's working with us. So I'm looking forward to the continued work with Hungerford
Nichols, yes.
Hungerford Nichols. Thank you
Appreciate
again.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we are still at the audit presentation on our agenda, and we technically have to accept the audit results. So you all will notice in your additional set of documents, there's a staff report that's number B1. And I will defer to Dr. Butts to read that.
Staff report B1, subject audit presentation. Reason for board consideration. Board policy requires that after the close of the fiscal year, an audit of all accounts of the district be made annually by an independent certified public accountant. Facts and analysis. Auditors from Hungerford Nichols recently completed the external financial audit of the district's 21-22 financial records. This evening, representatives from Hungerford Nichols are here to present a summary of this year's audit report. Policy reference 6830 audit. The recommended action that the Benton Harbor Area School Board of Education votes to accept the 22 audit report for Hungerford Nichols.
All right, is there a motion to approve staff report B1?
So move.
The motion has been made by Secretary Triplett. Is there a second or support?
I support.
The motion has been made by Secretary Triplett and supported by Trustee Rocket Martin that we approve staff report B1 for acceptance of the audit report. Questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, Secretary Triplett, can you please call the vote?
President Robinson,
Yes.
Vice President Bowen,
Yes.
Secretary Triplett, yes. Trustee Rocket Martin,
Yes.
Trustee Angela Doyle,
Yes.
Trustee Eleanor Gavin,
Yes.
motion carried.
All right, awesome. And thank you again for providing that presentation. And I just want to take an opportunity to commend Dr. Butts,
Yeah.
those that are in our business office, as well as Liz, for the legwork that was done to finalize the audit in the transition that occurred in our office. And so if everyone is okay, I'd just like to give them a round of applause because they were working many days focused on this particular audit. So thank you so much, Dr. Butt. All right, so we're gonna proceed. Next is the conflict of interest disclosure statement. And this is just something that we're required to sign annually. So it's to be filed by each board member by June 30th with the office of the superintendent. And so I just want to make sure that everyone gets this completed and turned in this evening. That way we can make sure we have it. And Liz is not following up with anyone at the last minute. So you're just going to sign. You list your name as a member of the Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education. Have carefully read and understand the district's policies listed below concerning conflicts of interest. Policies are available on request or online at the district's website for review. I represent the district. I represent to the district the following. I am in compliance with all provisions of the policies, or I do not have any personal, financial, or professional interests. They may trigger my obligation to report a real or potential conflict or to seek guidance on any situations except as follows. And then there's policy references. I know that many of us have signed this before. If you haven't had an opportunity to read the policies, of course, I want to make sure you read the policies before you sign, indicating that you understand and are in agreement with them. But just make sure we get this back to Liz. Our deadline is June 30th, but I'd like us to get this in no later than this month, if feasible. Any questions on that before we proceed? All right, so next we technically have our organizational meeting. You have the floor.
You mean to take those documents? Have you make sure that you get them?
Yeah, because I have 1,000 things. I'm used to my booklet. It's throwing me off a little bit. Okay, I haven't signed mine.
Oh, we all have it, okay.
Yep, we all have one.
Okay.
Okay, so next we are going to continue with our organizational meeting. First up, item A is the appointment of the recording secretary for the calendar year. We've traditionally allowed the executive administrative assistant, Liz Goodwin, to act in that capacity. Secretary Triplett, of course, is our secretary, but Liz Goodwin assists him with the minutes as it relates to recording them. They touch base with each other as far as our motions and things of that nature. So the normal candidate is Liz Goodwin. I know that we put this down before because each year when I ask for a candidate, somebody randomly throws out someone else's name. So I'm going to ask, is there any nominations for the office of recording secretary for the calendar year?
Madam President, I'd like to nominate Liz Goodwin.
All right. And is there a second or support of that?
Support.
All right. So Secretary Triplett, can you call the vote for Mrs. Goodwin?
President Robinson,
Yes.
Vice President Bowen,
Yes.
Secretary Triplett, yes. Trustee Gavin,
Yes.
Trustee Rocket Martin,
Yes.
Trustee Doyle,
Yes.
motion carried.
All right, next we have our legislative delegate to the Michigan Association of School Boards. As a reminder, this was, for the past 2 years, has been Vice President Bradley with Secretary Triplett as the alternate. And so as it currently stands, of course, every year we revote, but I am going to ask, is there any nomination for the legislative delegate to the Michigan Association of School Boards? I'd also like to request that we also have an alternate as well.
Madam,
Trustee Bowen.
I would like to nominate Mr. Triplett as the delegate and Ms. Raquette as the alternate.
Madam President.
Okay, hold on one second. Secretary Triplett, do you accept the nomination as a delegate?
Yes.
Okay. Trustee Rocket Martin, they were, Bowens was notating you as a alternate. Is that something that you'd be interested in?
I could accept that one.
Okay, so you've declined. Okay, any other nominations for delegate for Michigan Association of School Boards?
Alternate.
Yes, Madam President, I'd like to nominate Eleanor.
One
Gavis.
second. So we can only have one person talking, and right now Ms. Doyle has the floor. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'd like to nominate Eleanor Gavins, trustee,
Okay, and are you nominating her as the delegate or as the alternate?
the delegate.
Okay, so you would like to nominate her as the delegate. Are there any nominations for a potential alternate?
I'd like to nominate, I gotta get it right, Trustee Gavin. For the alternate position.
For which position?
Alternate.
For alternate, okay. So as it currently stands, there's technically 2 people on the floor for the delegate. And then Gavin was also nominated for the alternate position.
Oh, did you decline it?
She declined it. Raquel Martin declined alternate. And so I would ask, and of course, there is no pressure, Ms. Doyle, would you, Ms. Gavin, do you accept alternate or would you prefer to take vote for delegate?
I accept the delegate position.
Okay.
If it's available.
So you decline alternate.
I accept whatever is available.
So essentially what I'm doing is we can either take the vote,
Here to support.
we have one delegate and one alternate. Traditionally, they both go if they're available to do it. The delegate, the difference is that the delegate places a vote on behalf of Benton Harbor area schools. If in the event that the delegate is unable to attend or act in their duties, then the alternate would go in and take the vote on behalf of Benton Harbor area schools at the actual convention. And so right now, we have two people that are on the floor as the actual delegate. And I'm wondering if either of you would be interested in serving in the capacity of a alternate, or do we need to take the vote between the two?
So it sounds
I'll
like
do-
you had. oh, go
I'll
ahead.
do the alternate.
Okay. Ms. Gavin, what were you gonna say?
I'm just here to support
Okay,
and serve.
I'll do the alternate,
you'll do alternate?
yes.
So you're declining, you officially withdraw as delegate and you will accept an alternate position.
Yes.
Okay, so is there anyone that would like to officially nominate Secretary Triplett as an alternate?
I nominate Secretary Triplett as an alternate.
Are these two votes or one vote?
So right now, where we are, because I know that we've done quite a bit of conversation, is initially we had two individuals that were nominated for the position of delegate. Secretary Triplett has made the decision to withdraw himself as delegate and accept a nomination as the alternate. And so if there's no contesting to what has been placed on the floor, we can do them, I'll do them separately, just in case. So we're gonna run the vote. We only have one nominee for the position of delegate to the Michigan Association of School Boards. Secretary Triplett, can you please call the vote for Ms. Gavin
For the delegate,
for the delegate?
President Robinson,
Yes.
Vice President Bowen,
No.
Secretary Triplett, yes. Treasurer Creighton.
Yeah.
Trustee Rocket Martin.
Yes.
Trustee Gavin,
Yes.
Trustee Doyle,
Yes.
motion carried.
All right, congratulations. And next, we're gonna do an alternate for the Michigan Association of School Boards. And I don't know if you have a slot on your roll sheet for it. So you may have to just create one or notate it at the bottom. But can you call the vote for yourself as an alternate delegate for the Michigan Association of School Boards?
President Robinson,
Yes.
Vice President Bowen,
Yes.
Secretary Triplett, yes. Treasurer Creighton,
Yes.
Trustee Rocket Martin,
Yes.
Trustee Gavin,
Yes.
Trustee Doyle,
Yes.
motion carried.
All right, so as it stands, our legislative delegate to the Michigan Association of School Boards is Trustee Gavin, and our alternate is Secretary Triplett. I have never served as a delegate before. I know Trustee Triplett has gone to many of the conferences. I don't believe you've ever actually placed a vote on our behalf.
No, that was something Vice President, we just had all the confidence in our. Vice
VIP
President.
Bradley.
Yes, Vice President
Um,
Bradley, he did an amazing job
Yes.
representing us.
So if either, I hate to throw him under the school bus, but if either of you have questions about that process, I'm pretty sure he'd be more than willing to share some of his VIP expertise. We go in there and they would act like they don't know who we were, but Bradley was the hottest thing since sliced bread in the MASB chamber. So you all can give him a call if you have questions. Or I can reach out on your behalf if the district has questions about that process. All right, so next we have representation to the Berrien Cass School Boards Association and Berrien Regional Education Service. Last year, our representative was Secretary Triplett and our alternate was Trustee Rocket Martin. So at this particular time, I'm gonna ask, do we have any nominations for the position of representative to Berrien Cass School Boards Association and Berrien RISA?
Madam President,
You have the floor.
I would like to nominate Ms. Raquette as the representative and yourself as the alternate.
Mike Robinson.
Uh, Before I decline, I'm wondering if Secretary Triplett has any interest in serving as alternate. I know you were the primary rep previously.
Yes, and I would like to say to whoever is chosen to be the representative at RISA, I think that it's very important that we get involved in it. I think they were kind of, I don't know what, I don't want to be accusatory or what have you, but as far as us being informed and at the table, being at the table, we weren't there, and because we weren't notified. So I think if you take this position, this is a very serious position as it relates to our relationship with RISA and Benton Harbor Area School. And it wasn't that we weren't there, and then finally towards the end of the year, they asked, where were you? When you didn't know when meetings were held and what have you. So if you take it on, hope you be proactive. I think you do a great job.
And what my question that I was asking is, before I respond to whether I'll serve as an alternate, I'm wondering if you have any interest in a particular nomination of yourself as the alternate.
Most definitely,
Okay.
I'll do it.
For that reason, I will decline the nomination as alternate, and I nominate Secretary Triplett to the position of alternate. Are there any additional nominations for Berrien Cass School Boards Association and Berrien RISA?
I do want to add another nomination. I would like to nominate Trustee Bowens as the alternate for a Berrien RISA post.
So are you
Right.
are you declining your own self?
If he accepts it, I will. I think you do a great job.
This is musical chairs tonight.
I humbly reject it.
Okay. So as it stands, we have Trustee Raquette Martin and Secretary Triplett.
Get it.
If there's no additional nominations or no objections, I'll just ask that Secretary Triplett call the vote. We'll do both of these mutually.
President Robinson,
Yes.
Vice President Bowens,
Yes,
Secretary Triplett, yes. Treasurer Creighton,
Yes.
Trustee Gavin. Oh,
These are
Triplett,
for-
yes.
This is for triplet or
This is for Raquette and Triplett together.
So Rocket.
rocket and triplet, yes.
Yeah.
Trustee, did I say yes for myself?
You did.
Okay.
Hot potato, I passed it right on to
Right.
you.
Trustee Bowens,
I said yes.
okay, Trustee Rocket Martin
Yes.
and Trustee Doyle,
Yes,
motion carried.
All right, thank you. And just to clarify, why did the MASB separately? Because we didn't initially have the alternate noted. So because it was addition, I wanted to take those votes separately, but we've traditionally done the Berrien Cass rep and alternate together. All right, next we have approval of our bylaws, our dates, times, and place of meetings for the Board of Education. So this is all of the current bylaws that we have as a district as they stand. The dates, times, and place of our meetings. There is there's your last page of that agenda packet. It says the meeting time, place, and dates for the regular meetings of the Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education for calendar year 2023, which occurs after the effective date of this action. Meeting time, 5:30 p.m. Meeting place, Benton Harbor High School Library, unless mandated by any branch of government to be held electronically. And that's like if we have any, Lord help us, no other COVID-related epidemics or things like that. The location would be 870 Colfax Avenue, Benton Harbor, Michigan. And so this essentially would be the second Tuesday of each month is traditionally what we've done. I do want to notate that there's a correction. For January, it has it noted as January 10th as the regular meeting. That is today, and today was technically a special meeting, including our organizational meeting. So our regular meeting date is technically January 17th for this month. And that would be the only correction that would be needed to the schedule that has been provided. If this schedule is approved as it stands, I'll ask that Liz make that correction and email it out to the board so that you all have it. And then the other piece of it, that's essentially it. So I know that sometimes we have had conversation about the date, the time, the place of the meetings, things of that nature. Just want to make sure that the second Tuesday of the month, other than next week, and the 5:30 time still work for everyone. Any issue? All right. So if there's no additional concerns or questions,
Madam,
you have the floor.
I have a couple, I don't know if this is related here, but the time and place of the meetings.
Mm-hmm.
I know that we're not able to do meetings via Zoom anymore, I guess because of the Open Meetings Act. But is there a reason why we're not offering the meetings Facebook Live for those public participants who cannot make it physically into the library?
So you're saying go from our Facebook page and record it?
Did I say Facebook? I mean YouTube Live.
Okay, Paul, as our IT, go ahead.
Something, Liz?
That would take two-way communication to have a Facebook Live, you can see it or participate. Participation or viewing.
I think she was referring to viewing.
Viewing for now. Is there a way that you can come to the microphone?
Yeah, we can look into it. I believe it should be technically possible. The only thing that I believe we need to be careful of is not allowing two-way communications because that'll violate the Open Meeting Act. So, but we can look into the ability to stream it again.
Thank you for
You have the
that.
floor.
With that, with Facebook. They can
She
leave
was
a
meaning YouTube.
YouTube, okay, we still have you, we still utilize YouTube, though, right?
So currently the meetings are recorded and then uploaded to YouTube after the fact. So we would just need to make sure that we were able to host the meeting and stream it, and it doesn't have any technical limitations for buffering or any bandwidth problems. In addition to making sure that we can turn off comments. So those are just things we'll need to look into.
Okay,
So before it was easy for us to do it because we were not present, we were on Zoom, and essentially we were doing a live stream of a Zoom meeting and ourselves and the public was within that Zoom meeting. So what he would be needing to do is finding a way to live stream the recording of the meeting so that individuals can watch it.
you can do Zoom live and you
Right.
can share it from your social media page. My question is, if they're leaving comments on that social media page, is that an official comment?
So the thing about it is the comments should not be received unless it's a public comment section. And I would have to check, I would have to dig into the OMA to look at how all of that is ironed out as it relates to potentially random comments being made or turning off comment blocking or things like that. So that's something that we can kind of explore for the future, kind of look at the technicalities of that.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you. I had another question, Madam President.
you have the floor.
Regarding the bylaws, I'm hoping that the bylaws that were on the Benton Harbor Area School page are the same as this link. We did not have access to this document. So I did have quite a few, not really receiving an in-depth orientation until very recently. Have a lot of concerns about specific bylaws and recommendations. And I'm wondering if we should table the approving of the bylaws until we've had an opportunity to go through all of them, or do you want me to go through all of them here in this meeting, which I'm happy to do as well?
Okay, so you're saying, I want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. You saying that you haven't had an opportunity to review the current bylaws of the Board of Education?
I'm saying that on this document, the link to the bylaws, I did not have access to this link. But I did have access to the Benton Harbor Area Schools webpage. I'm
Right,
not
so
sure
that
if
would
that's
be,
the
that's
exact
what, so what
same.
we would be,
That's
what we are approving is essentially what is noted on the website, the bylaws as they stand on the Benton Harbor Area Schools website.
Okay, perfect. So those are the bylaws that
Mhm.
I went through. And so there are some amendment recommendations for those bylaws. And I'm not sure if this is the time to go through them or if we as a board need time to look at them. And then if we can approve them, if we should be tabling it and approving it at a later time.
So how many recommendations do you have?
I have a question.
You have the floor.
Is there a motion on the floor or is this like this? I'm just wondering, we're having a discussion. Is there a motion on the floor?
Did we have, I don't even think we've
That's
taken
just-
approval of it. I was asking if there were any general concerns before we actually take a motion to approve the bylaws and the day. Well, I was talking about the meeting dates and times, making sure there were no suggested corrections to what we currently have before I take the motion for approval of the schedule. And then Ms. Gavin asked about the bylaws because they're linked together. So we technically have not gotten to a motion just yet.
May I make a motion or are we waiting?
You can make a motion. I'm gonna allow trustee Bowens to ask his question.
The bylaws, aren't they Neola?
So the bylaws, the way that we have our bylaws is that we work with Neola and they make recommendations that are standard for school districts. We look over the policies, which you all have been in our meetings where we review policies or update the policies, things of that nature. And then we as a board ultimately decide to make the improvements, and then those are the bylaws. So each of the bylaws will have the year that the Board of Education actually accepted that particular bylaw or the update. So yes, it is through Neola policy.
So we could go ahead and approve this and come back and look at her recommendations once we receive those.
That is something that we could do.
Okay.
I'm gonna let Secretary Triplett go and then I'll go back to Gavin.
I think also, trustee Gavin, we do have time throughout we have reads.
Mhm.
Where we go through and we read the bylaws and what have you, and if there's things that we want to adjust and update and what have you, that is the time or something we want to add to it, that is the perfect time to, I mean, you can do that. So there are so many reads because we are constantly charged with updating our policy. So there will be time when we read and work, it's a living document. It's not set that we vote tonight. It's not saying that this is just set in stone. The bylaw is a living document. So you will have an opportunity as well.
I guess for me, approving bylaws that I would like to recommend changes. Either, I'm looking at either tabling it or having an opportunity to discuss the amendments that I would like to make to them.
President Robinson,
You have the floor, Treasurer Creighton.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the bylaws, the date, the time and the place of the meeting.
Support.
Okay, so I'm gonna pause really quickly because I think trustee Gavin I don't know if that was an actual motion that you were saying, or if you were saying that.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to table the approval of the bylaws until we've had an opportunity to go through them and discuss them.
Well, she had actually communicated that. Is there a second to that motion to table?
I second.
Okay, Secretary Triplett called the vote for tabling the vote on the bylaw.
President Robinson,
No.
Vice President Bowens,
No.
Secretary Triplett, no. Treasurer Creighton,
No,
trustee Rocket Martin, trustee Gavin,
Yes.
trustee Doyle,
Yes.
motion failed.
Okay, and then
President Robinson,
you have the floor.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the bylaws, the dates, the time, and the places, in the place of the meeting.
Support.
Okay, so the motion has been made by Treasurer Creighton and supported by Trustee Bowens that we approve the bylaws, dates and times and place of the meetings for the Board of Education, making sure that it's notated. And then this is just my note to that, that the regular board meeting is the 17th. Today was technically a special session. Questions, comments, concerns? Secretary Triplett,
President Robinson,
yes.
Vice President Bowens,
Yes.
Secretary Triplett, yes. Treasurer Creighton.
Yes.
Trustee Rocket Martin,
Yes.
Trustee Doyle,
No.
Trustee Gavin,
No,
motion carried.
All right, so what I will say, Ms. Gavin, is the bylaws that you had suggestions for. I don't know if you have them typed out or if you had did you have an actual email or just a note?
just notations.
Notations, okay. So what I would ask is that you gather those bylaws and your notations and you share those with me so that we can bring those before the board and actually have an opportunity to determine if those are adjustments that we would like to make.
Is that something that we can add to the agenda for next week?
If you think you can get it to me quick enough,
I absolutely can.
okay.
Thank you.
All right, and you might want to work with copy Liz as well, because she'll have to make sure that there are links to bylaws or hard copies provided. And I'm not sure if there's many or just a couple, but we may not get them all in one meeting depending on how many it is. So they may be something that's split out over our next couple meetings, depending on how many you have.
It's a small handful. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Okay. All right, next on our agenda, we have the resolution designating depositories and authorized agents for various funds and authority to make investments. That's addendum A. This is a lot to read, Lord Jesus.
Let's work, let's work, let's work.
Which page is it?
The addendum A, so it's the bank depository and agents resolution.
Okay. Instead of reading it all. just-
So I'm going to everyone has a copy. So the Benton Harbor School Business Office account for the business office, the Elizabeth Griffin Herman Trust Fund, the Frederick Sims Scholarship Fund, the Joseph Apowski Memorial Fund, the Les Bertigis Athletic Scholarship. Oh, thank you. My apologies. The Norman B. Hall Memorial Fund and the Robert Payne Scholarship Fund. This is indicating that the business office account be continued in operation at Horizon Bank, and further that the interim superintendent and the board approved CEO be authorized to individually sign checks on the account. That the food service fund continue at Horizon Bank, and that the interim superintendent and the board approved CFO be authorized to individually sign checks on the account. Be it resolved that Horizon Bank be and is hereby designated as depository of the district's general fund, and that the invoice account and all other accounts listed below, and that the funds so deposited may be withdrawn upon a check draft or wire transfer. Be it resolved that funds so deposited may be withdrawn upon a note or order of the district. Be it further resolved that all checks, drafts, notes, or orders drawn against the said accounts be signed by their respective authorized signers as indicated below, and then no checks, draft, notes, or orders drawn against the said bank shall be valid unless so signed. Liz, was the hard copy not updated to? I know it has my name as an authorized signer in the box below, but the copy that I'm reading doesn't have it listed.
General accounts.
Yes, yeah, the hard copy that I have and what I just read only notes the interim superintendent and the board approved CFO. So I just want to make sure everyone is aware, because I don't know if what I have is the electronic copy, but currently in the absence of a CFO, the interim superintendent and myself are currently the two signers. And then, of course, the board approved CFO would be an authorized signer. And that's just in the event that Dr. Bus is unable to sign for something, we had to have a second person in place. So you'll notice at the bottom, as we go further, it does have my name, Kelvin Bus, Deshauna Robinson, and board approved CFO in that box. It just wasn't notated upward in what I just read. So it has all of the accounts listed that we have, those same signers. And then be it further resolved that Horizon Bank is hereby authorized and directed to honor and pay any checks, drafts, notes, or orders so drawn, whether such checks, drafts, notes, or orders be payable to the order of any such person signing said checks, drafts, notes, or orders on any such persons acting in their individual capacities or not, whether such checks, drafts, notes, or orders be deposited to the individual credit of any of the officers or not. This resolution to continue in full force until notice to the contrary in writing is duly served on the said bank. And then the other is the designation of the depositories and authorized agents for payroll and invoice fund for the school district. Those essentially as well are Dr. Kelvin Butts, myself, and then the board approved CFO, and these are for Huntington Bank. So the last sentence is be it further resolved that all checks, drafts, notes, or orders drawn against said accounts be signed by, and then we have myself as the authorized signer. And then to be it further resolved that Huntington Bank is hereby authorized and directed to honor paychecks, draft, notes, or orders drawn, whether such checks, draft, notes, or orders be payable to the order of any such person signing in or countersigning said checks, drafts, notes, or orders, or any such persons, et cetera, et cetera. The next is the resolution to invest idle funds. I am not authorized for investments. So you guys will notate the different investments or types of investments that we can make per Act 451 of the Public Acts of 1976. And then the whereas is it is the intent of Benton Harbor Area Schools to maximize its returns on balances from time to time available in the various funds of the district. And whereas it has been the past practice of Benton Harbor Area Schools to have its board approved CFO as the designated agent of the treasurer, make an immediate investment of available balances. Be it therefore resolved that the interim superintendent and the approved CFO designated agents of the treasurer be authorized and are hereby directed to invest balances from time to time available in various funds. Be it further resolved, the interim superintendent and board approved CFO may also deposit available balances in savings accounts and or saving deposit receipts. And said interim superintendent and board approved CFO are further instructed when possible to invest funds and instruments as permitted by law and by board policy. Said interim superintendent and board approved CFO are further instructed when possible to invest funds and instruments as permitted by law per policy 6144. Be it further resolved, all such investments heretofore made are hereby ratified and validated. And then all resolutions and parts of resolutions insofar as they conflict with the provisions of this resolution B and the same are hereby rescinded. So this is the bank and depository agents resolution. So essentially you all are giving authorization to myself, Dr. Butts, and the blessing that the Lord sends us in the position of the CFO to sign on our checks. You are giving permission to the superintendent and the CFO to make investments on behalf of the district. And so I'm going to ask if there is a motion to approve the bank depository and agents
I
resolution.
motion to approve the bank deposit.
Support.
Motion.
Okay, so the motion has been made by trustee Bowens and supported by treasurer Creighton. Questions, comments, or concerns?
I do have a couple of questions. When you say the investment and what have you, the superintendent having that type of authorization, but does it have to have board approval? We're just not giving an individual the authority to make that type of decision as it relates to investments for the school district without it coming through the board. You all right? You look like you're confused. Your ass. No. Oh, okay. I was just wondering if you was all right, but you was. I want to make sure you was all right. You was right. Okay. So I mean, because we right now we're in an interim status. We're in an interim situation. Somebody just left. I mean, you know, just the people coming in as superintendent of the school district, I do. Not saying this is not about an individual. But I do have some concerns about just saying, as the superintendent, they can go make do the recommendation have to come to the board before they just make this investment, or do they just have the power and authority to do that?
So the notation says, whereas Act 41 of the Public Act of 1976 as amended provides that if authorized by resolution of the board of a school district, the treasurer may invest debt retirement funds, building and site funds, building and site sinking funds,
Okay.
the general funds of the district.
Yeah.
The
No, ain't gotta
investment
go no
shall be
further.
paid pursuant to subsection 7 and shall be restricted. And I know that previously, one of the things that we discussed were the ways that the district was able to make revenue. And various investments were on the list of several ways that were presented to us, including a potential bond and things of that nature. So
Madam President,
you have the floor.
I do think it's awkward that we are voting for this. I think in the future, or if we can, what's the point of having a board treasurer? And their names aren't, you know, they can't sign checks. It's just. And realistic, like any board, the treasurer name should also be on this account.
Mhm.
On these accounts, I think it provides proper oversight. It also, you know, 3-to-1. It's securities with that.
I was.
That's it.
Okay, and in the absence of our CFO, when it came to our attention that we only had one signer, Dr. Buss did reach out to our council to see who would be most appropriate to be listed as that second signer in the absence of a CFO. And the guidance that we received at that particular time was board president as the secondary if Dr. Buss is unable to sign anything, but we can definitely check into our treasurer being listed as an authorized signer on accounts, or
Thank you.
if there's districts that do that.
Madam.
You have the floor.
That's what I was looking at that too. I was thinking that same thing as far as the treasurer. You know, we all have our roles and our responsibilities, and I think that is a critical piece I have, and I do have confidence in our treasurer, not to take anything away from the
No,
president.
I understand.
When we're talking about the finance, I think we do have a knowledgeable treasurer, and integral treasurer that would handle the business, done a great job. So I would like
I
for that to
agree.
be taken into consideration. I struggled with last year, and I just wanted some clarification. I will bring this up later because it is not individual. It's not about an individual, but just for one signature, I think checks and balances with what we have. I think that when, you know, decisions are being made, that I don't know, I think we need to look at it and say, there are specific things that need to have both, that needs to have two signatures.
Yeah.
You know, for accountability purpose. Because anyone, they could sign a check and never, you know, as lack, when I was CFO in that office, and what do you have, you can sign a check, cash a check, you know, you might get it back from insurance, different things. It's not, this is just business, not about. And I struggled with that last year. With the superintendent just being able to go and sign and write checks. I think that we're putting ourselves in jeopardy and in danger when we allow such type of things to happen in this district. I think there should be two signatures. And if we're doing things decently and in order in a timely manner, you know, we shouldn't be in a situation where we just have to come in the 11th hour to sign. So I think that there should be two signatures on to take care of us, to be safe. I think we dodged the bullet.
Trustee Gavin.
I have a question. It says or board approved CFO. Is it safe to assume that there is somebody on the level right under the CFO who has that accounting background in our business office? I assume somebody's still doing his role.
Correct. So there is a business office in place that have been working in that capacity, we also did some, I guess you could say some subcontracting with an individual that has helped us with audit preparation before. So we have continued the movement of the financial office in absence of a CFO by various means.
Okay, I asked because if it was the CFO at one time, I'm assuming that's the person who made sure that they kept a record of these transactions, and with there not being that person on this table, I'm wondering if there's somebody who's doing that person's job. Who can be
Dr. Bus
hired.
can give you the clarification on his office.
So we're,
running.
Thank you.
we've contracted with Hunger for Nichols, our current auditors. A portion of their company is stepping in to help us make sure that we keep the day-to-day operations functional. And at the end, you will see I will be recommending a new auditing firm for next year, contracting with them so that Hunger for Nichols can continue with us since they've done our auditing for the last decade, if not more, because they're so familiar with our accounts. So we've subcontracted with them in the absence of the CFO to make sure that we continue correcting our business and to make sure that we don't have any findings for next school year's audit. So they are helping us actually on our day-to-day basis. And it will be a conflict of interest to have them as our auditor for next year, with them coming in subcontracting now. So we have to vote on a new auditor for next year. And I'm in negotiations with Maynard Casterison for auditing purposes beginning next school term.
I guess I'm asking because who would take the place of this CFO spot, being that we don't have one right now?
Are you saying who is doing the work as it stands, or who would we be hiring?
I'm saying that right now, the way it looks is if we had a CFO, that's the person who would be one of the signatories. We don't have a CFO, so that's a blank person. So who is going to take that person's place to do this duty? Does that make sense?
So as it relates to the second signatory, when we need a second signatory is me. But I think you're more so asking from a CFO standpoint, who's doing the checks and balance?
Absolutely.
And that is the question that Dr. Buzz just answered, but
He's saying we don't have anybody right now, but we will later.
but you've been contracting with somebody previously, right?
We contracted with Tom Tebow to continue the services right after Mr. Johnson left. And Mr. Tebow has, after the audit was completed, we're now subcontracting with Hunger for Nichols to handle our day-to-day financial transactions to make sure that we are solvent and in the business office. So at their advice, whenever we have something that needs to be signed, that's when I sign it.
Okay, so they give advice.
Right.
They would not be,
It's-
it would not be appropriate for them to be on here to sign
You mean
in place of the CFO.
Right.
correct. Is that what you're asking, if Hunger for Nichols should be an authorized signer?
Yeah, I'm asking whoever in the business office that's in charge of the money,
Right.
that's gonna be held responsible for the flow of the money. Is that person someone who you recommend should be on this list
So
for
with
signing checks?
With them being subcontracted, they can't be a district signer. So
Gotcha.
I would have to be the signer.
Okay.
Secretary
And
Triplett?
I think that we're voting on when we talk about the depositories or what have you, we're voting on whether we have one or not. When we do get one, we will have, that will be one of the
That person will be
responsibilities for
voting in,
them to
yeah.
sign. Regardless to who it is and so right now, in the absence, we still do have two people, which is the superintendent, the interim superintendent, and the president of the Board of Education. But if we voting on this as our depositor, it's already in place, and when a CFO comes into place, we identify CFO, we don't have to come back, revisit, and do all of this.
And reapprove him to be able to
Thank
do
you.
it.
I just wanted to make sure
President
there was
Yeah.
something in the process for checks and balances who is familiar with the finances
Right.
and can be held accountable.
And then something that Dr. Buzz has mentioned before is that you've enrolled yourself in courses as well, correct? Which I don't know if you've shared with everyone.
Yes, ma'am. I'm enrolled in the MSBO Business Office Manager course.
President Robinson.
You have the floor, Treasurer Creighton.
Thank you so much. So basically to shed a little light also, so basically, it's very safe. It's definitely a good management best practice to definitely have a separation of duties and dual monitoring. And so, I think, I'm not sure, well, I'll automatically be back on the finance committee. But I think one thing, to understand is that it's always good to have someone else. And so the role that Hunger for Nickels will play is that they'll definitely, will make the sound decisions here as a board. But what they'll do is share best practices with us, and then they'll offer the transparency and all of the reporting. And so we'll have those things in advance before Dr. Butts is actually making signatures, and then the resolutions will still be approved. And so just keep that in mind. So every month he'll still do a financial report. And then once the financial report is approved, then that's when he'll actually make or sign documents. And so I just wanted to add that we're not, he won't just be able to, sign things by happenstance. There is still a dual monitoring and a process in place to make sure that there is a separation of duties. So Hunger for Nickels will have everything and have access to everything. They'll be able to view everything. And however, every month when we come before the board, in our finance meeting, we'll go over the packet extensively, line by line. And then we'll make a report and then a recommendation. Dr. Butts will make a recommendation to the board. And then after that is approved, that's when those things will be done.
And then just to add to that, I know that we may have mentioned it before, but for our new trustees, myself and Treasurer Creighton have met with Dr. Butts in the transition for the last couple months. I don't think we did December, but we've been meeting pretty consistently with him as it relates to the status of the finances, the process of the CFO search, utilizing subcontractors for support. We all have also met with Mr. Tebow and kind of discussed where we were as it relates to our finances when we had the transition of our CFO. So we have kind of jumped in to provide that additional support to Dr. Butts with making sure that the business office is able to be maintained smoothly in the transition. And we have, Dr. Butts has been working diligently to find a qualified CFO as well. I know we're kind of getting off topic because we're not necessarily talking about that, but just want to make sure you all know we've kind of attempted some potential individuals for the position, but there's still more to be desired as it relates to applications that we've received. So are there any additional questions or comments, Bowens?
I was just gonna call for the vote.
All right, Secretary Triplett.
So it was trustee Bowens who made the motion, and who supported it?
Creighton.
Liz Creighton. President Robinson,
Yes.
Vice President Bowens,
Yes.
Secretary Triplett. Yes. Treasurer Creighton.
Yes.
Treasurer Creighton.
Yes.
Trustee Rocket Martin.
Yes.
Trustee Doyle.
Yes.
Trustee Gavin.
No.
Motion carried.
All right, next on the agenda, we have the resolution designating approval of law firms. I'm sorry. I think I'm missing it on my back page unless it's really little. Mr. Triplett, you probably took it in one of the documents that you have of mine. Okay, so the law firms that are noted are. You all have a copy of that?
Yes, right here.
Can I? Oh, it's in the
It's right
other
there.
packet.
I make a
Okay.
motion that we approve
Thank you, because I'm sorry, I cannot turn around and look to the back of me. Okay, thank you, trustee Bowen. So the list of law firms that we have is Troon, Mika Myers, Clark Hill, Seacrest and Wardle. And then there's also a notation of, and any other law firm approved by the superintendent between the boards 2023 and 2024 organizational meeting. I know that before we took that last line off, I did point that out this time, but it was maintained to see if the board is at a position of comfort to keep that. If you all are not, we can remove it again. And if there's any additional law firm that is needing to be approved, it would just come before the board. You know, we meet at the crack of the drop of a dime when we are needed to. So that's where we are at the approval of law firms. Treasurer Creighton, I think you may have been in the process. It was either Bowens or Creighton that was making a motion.
I was making a motion that we approve point number F, the approval of the law firms. Clark Hill, Micah Myers, Troon, and I haven't heard of the other one.
Seacrest and Wardle is I had to get it up.
Are they new?
No, we've utilized them before. So the law firm of Seacrest and Wardle it represents Benton Harbor area schools and a number of other Michigan public school districts in the Adair et al. Versus the state of Michigan lawsuit.
So it's good to have these, we don't necessarily use them all, but it's good to have these particular law firms in place just in case, so that they will be able to represent the district with issues locally, personnel issues, state level, national level. So it's good to have them. But we also, just for me, I would like to see and receive how much money was spent
For 2022.
for 2022-23 school year on attorney. Because I also have some concerns about who these attorneys represent. These are the Board of Education attorneys, and some of them represent the district. If there's the Board of Education attorney, then they should be working on the best on behalf of the Board of Education, not individuals, not different sections within that work that are up under us. So
Madam President, oh, sorry.
yeah, I would like clarification on who these people are, because I've seen some go into, human resource situation, and it seems like it's just a conflict. So
Madam President,
You have the floor.
I would like to make a motion that we table the approval of the law firms until the meeting next week.
All right. Is there a support?
support.
All right, so I will take the support from trustee Bowens.
Are we able to get that information by next week?
It should be an audit.
Yes.
Yeah,
We can get that.
so we can, Secretary Triplett, can you call the vote for tabling of the law firms?
President Robinson,
Bowen.
I'm sorry, trustee Rocket Martin, we don't do the additional comment when a table is on the floor. You can ask your question after. Okay, Secretary Triplett,
trustee Robinson,
yes.
Trustee Robinson, I'm reading this paper. Let me change this. President Robinson,
Yes,
Vice President Bowens,
Yes.
Secretary Triplett, yes. Treasurer Creighton,
Yes.
trustee Rocket Martin, trustee Gavin,
Yes.
trustee Doyle,
Yes.
motion carried.
all right, and I believe that is next to the last item that we have. Okay, here it is. know why I didn't see it before. Lastly, we have appointment of the auditors for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. And as Dr. Buss indicated, because we are working with Hunger for Nickels as it relates to supporting Benton Harbor area schools with services in our business office, it would be a conflict of interest for them to provide an audit on functions that they have supported and assisted us with. So the superintendent is recommending the appointment of Manar, is it Casterson?
Maynard Casterson.
Okay, I didn't do too bad.
I make a motion.
CPAs. Go ahead, Treasurer Craig.
I make a motion that we approve the new auditor for the 2022-2023. Is that correct? Or is it opposite?
It's correct because it would be the fiscal period that started for July
Gotcha.
of 22 through June 30th, 2023.
Correct.
I make a motion that we approve the auditor for the 2022-2023 fiscal year as listed below.
All right, is there a second or support?
So moved.
The
One
motion
second.
has been made by Treasurer Creighton and supported by Secretary Triplett. Questions, comments, and concerns?
I do
I have a comment.
question.
Okay, we will, I will go to Trustee Gavin with her question and then Treasurer Creighton with her comment.
I just have a question about the selection of the CPA firm. Is there any type of racial equity protocols in place to ensure that the firms or the people that we hire are considering BIPOC population? When I look at their team, I see absolutely no color. And so I'm just concerned, do we have any type of racial equity protocols when we're looking to hire firms of any nature?
Am I able to? Oh, go
You
ahead.
can
Dr.
respond, Treasurer Creighton.
Oh, I was going to say, there are procurement, that's actually a really good question, and we talked, a lot about that. I think as we've kind of, expanded our roles and had to learn a little bit more about the procurement process and the bidding process. And so, I'm not sure about the actual demographics of this firm, but there are procurement laws and disabled, business enterprise rules that are provided by the federal and state government that are definitely considered in this bidding process. I don't know how fortunate, I know that when we were actually doing some research and trying to look into some of these things, the selection of licensed CPA firms are very slim to none on this side of the state. However, I think Dr. Butts might have a little more insight on that, and then I still want to make my comment after that.
Dr. Buzz, do you want to add anything to Treasurer Creighton's response?
Yes, ma'am. This is one of the firms that we were already, Mr. Johnson had already contracted with prior to him leaving. So it was just a continuation since they had some knowledge of our business transactions as well.
Okay,
Thank you.
and then I'll defer to Treasurer Creighton for her comment. Right, it was a comment.
Thank you. Yep. So I think one other thing that we had talked about, actually, even with the last superintendent in our last audit last year, is that we would like a new set of eyes. And so I think this is all a blessing in disguise to at least, I cannot vouch for this particular company, but I think it's a good idea to definitely switch up companies to get a fresh set of eyes on the finances to make sure that we're having a good audit that is objective.
Thank you. Any additional questions or
Well,
comments?
I think, you know, when the interim superintendent said this was an auditor that Mr. Johnson, our previous CFO, who left unexpectedly, had worked with this team again. And I mean, this is serious work. We have an opportunity to get a lot of things right, you know, and do it decently and in order. And I do appreciate, you know, when we're looking at people that's going to come in and work with our district, it needs to be diverse, and we need to be looking and making sure that we do have people that look like our community and the makeup of our community. I think that is critical. But we also, like you said, with all of the certifications and the requirements, things that, all of those type of things can work together. So at this particular time, I know we need to have an auditor in place. I would digress, but when we do these contracts, is there any way they can be 6 months, 3 months, or what have you like that? Or I don't know how that might look. We can talk about that later.
Madam President?
Our trustee here had kindly reminded me that she attempted to make a comment. I have yet to come back to her. So I'm gonna allow trustee Raquel Martin to get out her comment she was trying to get in the midst of us tabling the lawyers.
Yes, in light of us tabling our attorneys and the people that law firms, I'm assuming that the district is still covered. If we don't vote on having those people in place tonight, the district is still covered,
We'll still,
legally covered.
yes, ma'am, we are until we approve otherwise.
Will you please, if you can-
Madam President, I would like to make a motion at this time.
You have the floor.
I would like to make a motion that we table our auditor until we actually, and I would like to table it, and I would, I don't know if it's appropriate, but until we get some other options or look to see if we could get another option or at least some information on this company.
All right, so Treasurer Creighton has made a motion to table the appointment of the auditors for the 2022-2023 school year. Is there a second or support?
Support.
The motion has been made by Treasurer Creighton and supported by Trustee Gavin. Secretary Triplett, can you please call the vote?
I had seconded the first one. I didn't know how to switch over. I had to go back and redo all of that. All right, Gavin, trustee Gavin.
Yes.
All right. President Robinson,
Yes.
Vice President Bowens,
No.
Secretary Triplett. Yes. Treasurer Creighton,
Yes.
Trustee Doyle,
Yes.
Trustee Rocket Martin,
No.
Trustee Gavin.
Yes.
Okay, so motion passes. So in
Wait a minute,
review,
I'm sorry. To table it, you might,
yeah,
You good,
motion
you good,
passes
thank
to
you.
table.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
yes,
sorry.
it's okay. All right, so just in review of what we did this evening, in our organizational meeting. We appointed Liz Goodwin as our reporting secretary. We selected trustee Gavin as the delegate to the Michigan Association of School Boards with Secretary Triplett as the alternate. We appointed trustee Raquel Martin as the representative for the BHAS School Boards Association and Bering and Risa with Secretary Triplett as the alternate. We approved our current bylaws and our meetings being the second Tuesday of each month. With the exception of January, which will be the 17th, that'll be next week. We approved the resolution designating the depositories and authorized agents. We tabled the vote for our law firms as well as the vote for our auditors. And we selected Deshauna Robinson as president, Trenton Bowens as vice president, Ronaldo Triplett as secretary, and Angel Creighton as the treasurer of the Board of Education for Benton Harbor Area Schools. So well done to this board. Next on our agenda, we are technically finished. We have old business. I just wanted to be sure to remind everyone that we have our first official regular business meeting next week, the 17th at 5:30 p.m. here in this library. What I am requesting from the Board of Education is that we all wear all black or black with accents of orange, wear our black and orange so that we can get a picture together as a board. It's not going to be, I don't think we have an official photographer coming in because Ms. Doyle and Ms. Gavin were able to get headshots that match ours. So if you all have not had a chance to look at the website, you'll see that there are pictures have been added. But we can have Paul just take us a group picture here at the table like we've done before. So we have a updated Board of Education picture. So if you all could look very nice, not that we don't always do so, but if you can come ready, be picture ready and you're all black or you're black and orange, I'd appreciate that. And then is there anything else for old business that I'm not thinking of? All right, any new business? All right, hearing none, we're gonna proceed to open public comment. Is there anyone here that would like to make a comment? And were you present when I read the comment, the policy before? Or do you need me to read it again for you?
Open public comment statement.
Yeah, do you need me to reread how the public comments go, or are you okay?
No, I'm good.
Okay, go ahead.
First of all, I would like to congratulate our two new board members.
Oh, man.
One of the things that I am very pleased with is the fact that we have something that's coming up, and it's dealing with the partnership agreement. I was in touch with Lance, and I was in touch with Gloria Chapman, who you will be directly in contact with. And I think this would be directed to you, Mr. Butts. I wonder, how would you be able to get on the committee? You know, because they said with the MDE that they're going to be partnering with community, parents, and the MDE as well as the school. And so I'm wondering, have you come up with a way that people can be put on that committee so that we can sit in on those meetings? Because I had addressed it to Liz on the 17th, but she said she wasn't aware of how it could be done. And I sent her an email. You remember the email I sent you where I asked you that question in regards to how can people get on this committee? Because per the MDE, and I've been in contact with the MDE and Gloria, they said it would be a committee. Okay, and the committee would consist of individuals from the community. And I was wondering if we had this in place, so as we move forward and enter into this partnership agreement, because we've had two agreements that we've entered into, the last one being with Whirlpool and with Lake, and then you were dealing with billion-dollar corporations, and that was a failure by design. And so as we move forward into this next partnership agreement, we have to be able to create our own format in order to bring this district and move the district forward. You know, that's one of the things I think that we should definitely be talking about, is how we're going to move the district forward. You know, I've been in a lot of meetings, but I think right now we have to definitely get on board with how we're going to move this district forward. What are the tools that are going to be necessary to maintain sustainability? And another thing that I've also looked at is the hiring process. I remember when we was under Nora Jefferson, when we were doing a lot of things in-house, we have to get away from subcontracting. Those are just the facts. And I appreciate Mrs. Craig's comment when she talks about we have to be able to vet these people. You know, we have to know who we sit at the table with, you know. And I thought she brought up a good idea that we need to change courses, especially when it comes to the lawyers, especially when it comes to people that's dealing with our finance, especially when we come to people dealing with the audit. Because in order to help the district, you got to know how we got in this problem. You cannot help us if you don't understand how we got here. And I've been following this for 20 years or better. And as I say, there's been a lot of people that have strategically worked against the district. You know, we may not be able to understand it, but we have to be aware of it as we move forward. And like I said, I'm going to stay on top of it, but I just need to know how we can get on that committee so that I could have a voice, you know, from here instead of going through Lance. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment?
Greetings to you all.
Greetings.
My prayers is that you all have a blessed year this year.
Thank you.
I'm familiar with pretty much every face that's here on this committee. And I'm so happy to see these two young ladies, Miss Doyle and Miss Gavin here. And it says that in the scripture, it was says that it was focused in keeping us very focused. And I see very focused young ladies here. And I think that they bring something to the table. And I'm so happy to see them here. So I really, like I said, I refer back to what the scripture say, and all that get an understanding. And that's when you ask those questions and stay on point and get to the very roots of what is going on. So I'd like to see that cooperation and that pulling together here. I worked with the school system for 26 years. And as I retired in 2004, I wanted to still stay in contact with our youth. They're so important because we don't want the Benton Harbor to go down as a legacy with the legacy of that we didn't accomplish anything. We want to produce a great product, and that's our youth. They're the ones that's coming up behind us. You all are coming up behind me. And I'm so glad to see that we have the ones that hears with such intelligence, I know, and I can hear your voices and see that you know how to get information. And that's what you should do. Always do a research before you vote and get into doing some things, because that's where we get into a lot of problems when we don't research different things that we are doing. I have met the Superintendent Butts,
Yes, ma'am.
but it's an honor to meet you. I had mistaken you for someone else. But after a while, I began to pick up that you wasn't that person. But I do pray that you all work together and we produce great products here. We got some beautiful young people. And that's the purpose of having this board, is that we govern this school system to the best interest of them. So I thank you all and God bless you all.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all. I want to say, as a longtime resident of Benton Harbor, I am so proud of this board. And I'm looking forward to all the good things that you're gonna allow our students to get involved in. This is a new time for us. This is our time. And we have to make sure that our babies are supported, and I'm so proud of you. And I'm really proud that you got an audit that was just great. And he said that there was public, and I would like to see where I could get a copy or look at it, because I'm looking for ways for you guys to pave a way for the city. So thank you very much, and let me know where I can get that audit.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment? All right, hearing none, we will go to superintendent announcements and comments.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Madam President. The hats that you'll find at your seat is part of our recognition for School Board Appreciation Month. That's the beginning, the part of it. I'd also like to thank Whirlpool for their donation of over 3,200 books to the students of Benton Harbor area schools, which includes all 6 buildings from grades 6 to 12. That averages about 2 to 3 books per student. They gave those out right before the Christmas break. The executive district director position of Positive School Climate, common title Chief of Student Support Services position, which is critical in addressing the current needs of the district, was filled by one of our own, Paul Corson, effective January 9th. The high school first floor floors, sorry about that, tongue twister, have been waxed and buffed and making the school look even cleaner and more inviting. The facilities director will continue to work on training all custodial staff to buff and wax the floors and continue to create an environment that is conducive to learning. Also, I have 2 gifts for our new board members, just to welcome them on the board. So I'll present them to them now. And I like to say I'm looking forward to continuing this school year out, working with a great board and making some great decisions. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Butts. Next, we have board member announcements and comments. And we will start with Trustee Doyle. So this is your opportunity to provide any general announcements that you have for anything in the community that may be going on or anything that you're working on, or it can be your wrap-up comment about anything that has happened in this board meeting or your thoughts on being a new board member, whatever you would like to give us in the hot 2 minutes that you have to wrap up the meeting.
Okay, I would just like to say I'm very happy and grateful.
Speaking to the mic so she can catch you for minutes.
I'm so happy and grateful to be on this board to assist and make the best for our children. I'm grateful that I was selected, and I look forward to working with everyone to do our very best for these babies.
Thank you. Next, we have. Oh, I have to remember. That's our vice president now. Okay, next we have trustee Gavin.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank everybody for coming out. It's a challenge sometimes. You got to figure out what to do with your family members and put everything aside and come into the library and be with us for a few hours. So I'm super grateful. I'm super grateful for those who entrusted us with your children. They are our number one priority. Nothing else matters if we're not thinking about them. I'm so grateful for Mrs. Gwen Swanigan and Ms. Kennard, who gave us such beautiful gifts to just really inspire us. And I'm just looking forward to what's possible. I'm grateful to Madam President for giving me the opportunity to take a look at these bylaws and putting it on the agenda for next week. I do have some really exciting recommendations that are student centered. So I'm excited about that. And I'm glad that we had a clean audit. Very excited about that and looking forward to following up with the auditor to get some details about some of the other numbers. But more than anything, I'm just grateful to be here. I'm grateful for what's possible when we work together. Everyone tells us to be unified, but it's so important to understand what we're unified around. Not unified around giving up our assets, which is our land, our schools, our community, our opportunity to educate these young minds, but unified around educating young minds and being very focused on excellence in education. And so I'm really excited about what's possible and to just be able to work with a phenomenal staff. And I hope to see racial equity as a priority as we are selecting staff in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have trustee Raquel Martin.
And Commissioner Harris.
He's the officer.
Yes, good evening to everyone. I also would like to just thank all of my board members, and especially to the two new board members. Welcome aboard. It's good work, it's hard work, but it is rewarding work. I'd also like to say that we are on track of becoming a certified board, where I know a lot of us have been taking classes and are, I saw on Facebook where Mrs. Gavin and Mrs. Doyle are certified at level 1. And a lot of us have gone on to take the classes. And so our board is not a board that's stagnant. We are learning, we are taking classes, we are moving forward. You know, it's one thing to shoot from the hips, and it's another thing to really know what you're talking about. So information and education, striving for that is one way to stay in the loop and to keep current and to be able to move forward. I also would like to, I'm looking forward to working with those. My thing is, I'd like to see new facilities and newer programs introduced, you know, into our district for our students. New schools to me are beautiful, and there are, and it has its benefit. It's also a drawing card to get new students into your district, but that's another topic. But anyway, I would like to exhort us all to stay on track and to keep taking classes. You can never get too much learning, I think. You don't have to get big-headed or think you know everything, but I think you can always be knowledgeable and lend to the conversation. And with that being said, I know my time is up.
I was trying to be gracious. Okay, next we have Treasurer Craig.
Thank you. I just want to thank everybody for coming and bearing with us. I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve as treasurer again. I've had the opportunity to learn a lot. I've been really nervous in the absence of a CFO, but I'm definitely excited to have a CPA firm to come on board to help us keep our finances in a good position. So I'm excited about our first committee meeting this month. I'm excited to get a new committee for the finance team, a fresh set of eyes, and so that'll be very good. I don't actually make that selection, but I will get to stay, and so I'm hoping to at least welcome at least one new person, and so I'm excited about that. I'm really excited to be a Tiger. You know, I was at some games over the last break, and it was just really good to be in a gym that was painted, repainted, and you know, our facilities are looking good. The floor is shiny, and so I'm very grateful of the really small things that actually go a long way. It was good to see the students and a packed house. I feel like the restoration is here, and we just have to make sure that at this table, we're doing what we need to do to continue to make improvements in the classroom and in academics. And so I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the work that we have in store for us as we welcome incumbent president and then two new board members who has been around this community for a long time. And I had the pleasure of working with one as a teacher in human services some years ago, Ms. Gavin. And so I'm excited about the good work and the knowledge that will bring. I'm also grateful that we have a very professional board of people with various backgrounds. And so I'm really just excited about doing the work. I can pretty much work with anyone. And so I'm excited. You know, I was riding past in closing. I have a 4-year-old and we were riding past and she was like, Mom, is this? And I was taking her to school and she said, Mom, is this the high school that I'll be going to? And so that warmed my heart. And so I just look forward to the good work that we have in store for us.
Thank you, Treasurer Creighton. Next, we have Secretary Triplett.
My mind is all over the place. I'm trying to pray for the spirit of containment at this particular juncture. However, I too would like to take this opportunity to congratulate our president and our new vice president, Vice President Bowens. I think we did an amazing job as it relates to selecting our treasurer. And I am very humbled to serve in the office of secretary. One thing that I would like to say when I look at our president brings a sort of calm in the midst of situations. And we have a very strong board of education. You know, people won't give credit, but the auditor said within the last 2 years that we've had a great audit, that we've lost. You know, we had 6 and 7 different incidents. Now we're down to 2. I am so happy to welcome our 2 new board of education members. You know, I remember sitting in those seats, the first meeting. You don't know everything, but you don't have to know everything. And no question, if there's anything that you need to know, if there's something that you need, you know, any questions that you have, and I can be of any assistance, I will do so. Like Treasurer Creighton said, I've been knowing both of these women for some time, you know, and I know that they are the love for this community. And we all get together and work together. I think that we'll be able to do some great work. I'm proud to be on this Board of Education. And when Commissioner Henry said that, you know, they want to come and see some of the things that we're doing, you all can stop looking at that clock, because y'all ain't looked at the clock on nobody, but no, I'm ready to go. I'm tired. But thank you so very much. I'm looking forward to a very exciting year. And Dr. Buttons, thank you, seriously.
Yeah.
Things could have gone completely different. You know, with what was going on in your hand. You know, people leaving and walking out, I mean, well, leaving and, you know, just leaving us. Finances and what have you. Those type of things could have really gotten bad. And I've seen you witness you up close and from afar, that you know, made some decisions to hold us together. So please don't think that what you're doing is going unnoticed. And thank you so very, very much.
Thank you. Vice President Bowens.
Before I get started, can we give a round of applause to Mr. Joseph Bullocks?
Yes.
This past winter break, we were above and beyond. We notice it, we value, we appreciate you. It was great getting text messages. Dr. Butt's keeping us updated. I want to say congratulations to our board president, Deshauna Robinson, on being reelected. You know, power seats nothing without a demand. It never did and it never will. Frederick Douglass states that. Growing up in Benton Harbor, which was a vacation town, I didn't even know about the city limits. I was in Sodus, and we considered Sodus Benton Harbor. It was out in the country on Pipestone Creek and everything. Never imagined being a suburb boy, moving into an affluent Black community where I was only the Black person. And to go into Benton Harbor schools, I remember walking into Calvin Britton and saying, what in the world did my mama get us into? And meeting Mr. Featherstone. And I never would imagine that I would be vice president of the district. I won't let you down. And I would like to thank my board members that have their faith in me. And I value you guys and I appreciate you, and let's get it on. Thank you.
Thank you,
Aw.
Trustee Bowens, Vice President Bowens, as of 2023.
This hat is super cute, by the way.
I like
Well, mine can't quite get over my Afro puff, but I figure I'll probably have to put mine, wear my hair down or wear mine. We'll figure that out. Okay, so in my closing comment, I would like to start by reminding members of the public as well as the Board of Education that we are not to have side conversations during our meetings. And that's that the public, although you may be excited, try to refrain from making comments that spill onto the Board of Education, because we want to make sure that we're able to conduct our business without distraction from the side of the table or the front of the table. So that's the first thing that I want to notate, and that's overflowing from the meeting. I would like to say thank you to this Board of Education for having faith in me to nominate and elect me as your president for the third year. The Lord is funny in the way that he leads you to work that he wants you to do. I came to be appointed to the board, was selected and appointed as the secretary within the same meeting, and then was promoted to president that following year. And each year, I think I thought it was just going to be that 1 year. And the board has made faith or had faith to continue to support me in this role. And I do not take it lightly. I appreciate each of you. One of my number one priorities is to maintain board unity, because we have to be a team in order to be effective in the work that we get done. So I promise to lead equitably with the best interest of the board and the district in mind, as I've done previous. Just want to say congratulations to each individual that was elected as an officer, Secretary Triplin and Treasurer Creighton for continuing their roles, and congratulations to Vice President Bowens on your election as Vice President, as well as our delegates to Bering RISA and the Michigan Association of School Boards. I know you all will represent us well. Also want to say thank you to Dr. Butts for all of the work that you have done. You really didn't get a break at all coming in. And I know that we had a transition period, but your transition started from the top of the key, as we say. You had to get right on the gun and working hard. So I just want you to know I appreciate you. I value you. Know that you've asked me if I'm going to be the president moving forward. And I told you that was at the will of the board. So I look forward to continuing to work with you. And thank you to the members of the public that were able to attend this evening. Just a reminder, we have our official business meeting next week, the 17th at 5:30. That is going to be a hefty meeting. But I do invite you all to attend. So thank you all. I appreciate everyone here. That is all I have. Secretary Triplett would like to make an additional comment.
I too want to say to Mr. Bullock, you have just been absolutely amazing. I haven't felt like everything that we ask, anything that it's just right there. And that's the same thing our superintendent does. So I'm looking forward to that work continuing as it relates to our facility. But I would also like to take this opportunity next Sunday, the 15th, is the Mr. and Miss Benton Harbor contest. We have reserved seats for all of our board members with a +1. And our superintendent and our president and our central administration staff. So I will need your confirmation as soon as possible. I'll send them out, but I'm pulling tickets already for you all. So just let me know. But and those tickets are for you to be present. Okay, so you're coming, it starts at 5 o'clock. There's a reception for everyone at 3:30. So I will send it out in the email. So please, you can clear your calendar for January the 15th, Sunday, January the 15th at 4:30. The doors open at 4:30, but you guys will already be in. Reception starts at 3:30. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so welcome, Ms. Gavin, Trustee Gavin and Trustee Doyle to the board. You have had your first official board meeting of the 2023 school year. We did have an opportunity to speak yesterday evening. I just wanted to make sure they weren't too anxious, that they had questions answered. So I hope this first meeting coming in has given you guys an idea of what it is to be on this side of the table with this board. We look forward to seeing you all next week. And then, as I've stated before, I'll be sending out committee assignments will be announced at our January 17th meeting. I'll more than likely send it out prior to then, but if there are certain committees that you are interested in working on, please send me your committee of interest so that I can consider, and then I'll send out the actual appointments to committees for the board. And I have nothing else. I'm gonna call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Support.
The motion has been made by Trustee Triplett and supported, I'm sorry,
Madam President.
Secretary Triplett, and supported by Treasurer Creighton. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Yes, no.
Hearing none, Secretary Triplett, can you please call the vote?
President Robinson,
Yes.
Vice President Bowen,
Yes.
Secretary Triplett, yes. Treasurer Creighton.
Yes.
Trustee Rocket Martin,
Yes.
Trustee Doyle,
Yes.
Trustee Gavin,
Yes.
motion carried.
All right, our meeting is officially adjourned at 8:10 p.m. Have a great evening.